If you have gotten out of bed to use the bathroom more than once most nights since turning 60, I want you to listen carefully to the next 20 minutes. Because the reason you keep waking up may have almost nothing to do with your bladder and almost everything to do with a muscle the size of your fist that has been quietly losing ground for years. Go ahead and think about it. The research literature has spent a long time asking a simple question. Why do strong, independent adults in their 60s and 70s start waking 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a night to urinate, even when their prostate is fine, even when they cut off water at 7 p.m., even when they did everything their urologist told them to do? And I do mean suddenly. One year they are sleeping 7 straight hours. The next year they are stumbling to the bathroom at midnight, at 2 a.m., at 4 a.m. They nap in the afternoon because their nights are gone. They are tired in the morning not because of life, but because their sleep has been carved into pieces by their own bladder. Most of them, and most of their doctors, write it off as aging, just getting older. Bladder got smaller, prostate got bigger, nothing to do about it. That is the most expensive mistake in senior sleep, and I am going to show you why. Because in a large share of documented cases, the first crack was not the bladder at all. It was a quiet nutritional gap. 3 of them specifically. And here is the part that should make you sit up. These three gaps don't announce themselves with pain or a dramatic symptom. They disguise themselves as normal aging, which is exactly why 9 out of 10 people miss the window where they are still easy to fix. A senior biochemist whose work has been cited widely in nutrition science described what is often called the triage theory of nutrition. When your body runs short on a vitamin or mineral, it doesn't shut down everything at once. It rations. It protects the functions you need to survive today, like your heartbeat and your brain. And it quietly borrows from the functions you need to thrive over the long run. The constant repair of small vessels, the regulation of fluid balance, the steady contraction of the muscle that pumps blood back up from your legs when you stand. That is why a deficiency can drain your nights for 2 years without ever producing a symptom dramatic enough to send you to a doctor. By the time you feel it, the rationing has been going on for a very long time. Here is exactly what I am going to walk you through, so stay with me. First, I am going to give you the 60-second bed test that reveals whether your nighttime bathroom trips are coming from your bladder, your prostate, or your heart. And you can do it tonight before you go to sleep. Second, I am going to name the 3 specific nutrient gaps that overload your bladder at night in this exact order, starting with the one that affects the heart's pumping power before any urologist even thinks to look. Third, I am going to show you the one lab number most seniors have never had checked. Even though broken sleep from nocturia is now tied in published research to a higher risk of cognitive decline, falls, and even earlier death. Fourth, I am going to give you the food first plan, the actual plates of food, before anyone reaches for a supplement bottle. And fifth, I am going to tell you the 3 things you must ask your doctor about, including one common medication that quietly blocks the very nutrient your heart is starving for. And there is one of these 3 gaps that even careful health-conscious seniors get completely backwards. They take more of the wrong thing and make the problem worse. I will tell you which one near the end, because if you take it the way most people do, you may be accelerating the exact nighttime chaos you are trying to prevent. Let me tell you who I am quickly, because I know there are 100 people online telling you what to swallow. This is preventive education for older adults, prepared from published clinical sources. Our focus is older adults, mobility, falls, the slow loss of independence. I am not your treating doctor, and nothing here replaces him or her. This is education, so you walk into that appointment knowing what to ask. But I will tell you plainly what the research and case patterns show happens over in people who look perfectly healthy on paper. Let me tell you about a man I will call Robert. Robert was 67. He lived in a single-story house in Pennsylvania that he and his wife retired to in 2011. For most of his 60s, he slept straight through the night. Six, sometimes 7 hours without waking. He was by every appearance a healthy, vital man. He walked the dog every morning. He mowed his own lawn. He took a low-dose blood pressure pill, the kind millions of seniors take. About 2 years before I met him, Robert started getting up once a night. He wrote it off. He had a glass of water with dinner, so he stopped having a glass of water with dinner. He still got up. He stopped drinking after 6 p.m. He still got up. He cut caffeine. He still got up. Then it became twice a night. Then 3 times. His wife noticed he was napping in his chair after lunch. His doctor noticed his blood pressure was harder to control. Robert noticed he was less steady on his feet in the middle of the night than he had been 5 years before. When his feet were plenty steady. When he was 20 years younger. When he didn't have to think about where the bathroom door frame even was. Robert did what almost everyone does. Nothing. He didn't call his doctor because what do you even say? Doctor, I wake up to pee. There is nothing dramatic about that. He assumed he was just getting older. So he waited. He compensated. He wore the slippers with the heels instead of the ones with the backs, because he wasn't really walking, he was shuffling. He put a nightlight in the hallway. He put a second nightlight at the bathroom doorway. He avoided the glass of water he actually wanted because he knew what it meant. And here is the cruel part of that compensation. The very thing he did to feel safer, sleeping flat on his back, not elevating his legs, drinking less, was accelerating the problem. There is a phenomenon researchers studying older adults call venous pooling. When your legs are below your heart all day, gravity pulls fluid out of your bloodstream and into the soft tissue of your lower legs. Most of it stays there until you lie down. The minute you lie flat, your body reabsorbs that pooled fluid, ships it back through the heart, through the kidneys, into the bladder, and now you have to get out of bed. A man who is sleeping flat to avoid the bathroom is, without knowing it, inviting the bathroom. Robert's spiral worked like this. Every weak pump efficiency during the day meant more pooling in the legs, which meant more fluid returned at night, which meant more bathroom trips, which meant broken sleep, which meant worse blood pressure control the next day, which meant a weaker pump the next day. That is the spiral, and it tightens silently. 18 months into this, Robert got up at 2 a.m. on a night just like any other. Caught his slipper on the edge of the bedroom rug, went down hard, and fractured his wrist. Same mechanism as a hip, the immobility, the healing, the cascade that follows. But more than that, the broken wrist took away his morning dog walks, which took away the one piece of gentle daily movement that had been quietly protecting his heart for 15 years. When Robert's labs finally came back, 3 things were low. His vitamin D was deep in the deficient range, well under 20 nanograms per milliliter, when most clinicians want to see at least 30. His magnesium was at the bottom of normal, which on a standard blood test often hides a real shortage, because only about 1% of the magnesium in your body is in your bloodstream at all. The rest is inside cells and inside the heart muscle itself. So the serum test is like judging a reservoir by the dampness on the dam. And his B12, the vitamin his nerves needed to carry the signal from his brain to his bladder that the bladder was low enough that his feet had started to feel slightly numb, which he had also written off as getting old. Every one of those 3 was correctable. Every one of them had been quietly draining his heart for the better part of 2 years, and not one of them had ever been checked, because the visit before all this happened was 15 minutes long and nobody asked. I am telling you about Robert not because Robert is unusual. I am telling you about Robert because Robert is typical. And the small decision he made to compensate is the same decision that millions of capable seniors are making right now today in homes all over the country. So let me explain what is actually happening inside your chest and your legs when you lie down. In plain language, because once you understand the mechanism, you will never look at nighttime bathroom trips as just aging again. Your nighttime urine is not one system. It is three systems on top of each other, and a deficiency can knock out any one of them. First, the heart has to be able to move blood upward against gravity all day without losing too much fluid into the legs. Second, the nerves that coordinate the bladder and the signal that says it's full have to fire cleanly. Third, the kidney and the muscle that anchors the bladder have to actually be supported by enough of the right vitamins and minerals to do their job. 3 layers, 3 gaps, and they fail in a specific order. Start with the pump, because this is the first domino and the one almost nobody talks about. The amount of blood your heart moves with every cardiac output, depends on 4 things working together. The squeeze of the muscle, the rhythm of the electrical signal, the elasticity of the vessels, and the steady supply of minerals that allow the muscle cell to relax between beats. Magnesium is central to 3 of those 4. It is a required cofactor in more than 300 enzyme reactions in the body, but the one you feel is muscle function. And the muscle that matters most here is the one in your chest. Here is the mechanism. To relax a muscle after it contracts, your cells have to pump calcium back out, and that pump runs on a magnesium-dependent molecule called ATP. Without enough magnesium, the heart muscle cannot relax cleanly between beats. The squeeze becomes slightly less efficient. The output drops by a fraction. The blood that should be moving up out of your legs sits in the veins a little longer. That slightly inefficient pump is enough over months and years to quietly redistribute fluid from the center of your body into the soft tissue of your ankles, your calves, and your thighs. Your calves and that redistribution is what produces the bathroom trips at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Most people, when this happens, blame the bladder. They don't blame the heart, because the heart feels fine. The heart does not feel inefficient. The heart just keeps beating. But the cumulative effect is real, measurable, and fixable. Now the nerve. Even when the bladder signal works at all, it has to travel from the bladder to the brain and back. And that round trip runs on nerves wrapped in a protective coating called myelin. Think of it as the insulation on an electrical wire. Vitamin B12 is essential to building and maintaining that insulation, and it does it through a specific job. Clinical references describe B12 as a required helper for an enzyme involved in myelin repair. And they note that when B12 runs short, a substance called methylmalonic acid and the myelin sheath may not get maintained properly. That is not theory. It is the reason doctors can measure methylmalonic acid in the blood to catch a B12 shortage before the standard B12 number even looks abnormal. When B12 runs low over months and years, the insulation gets slower, the signal gets slower, noisier, weaker. The bladder fills, but the brain doesn't get the message on time. The brain sends the squeeze command, but the muscle receives it late. You don't feel this as a bladder problem at first. You feel it as urgency. You feel it as sudden panicked bladder. A bladder that empties before you are at the toilet. A bladder that runs on a delay. And here is what makes it dangerous in an older adult. Your balance depends on knowing where your feet are in space without looking at them, a sense called proprioception, and that sense rides on exactly the nerves B12 protects. When those nerves fray, your body loses its map of the floor. At the same moment it loses its bladder timing, which is why people with this deficiency fall more on the way to the bathroom than in any other room of the house. Now the deepest layer, vitamin D. There are receptors for vitamin D sitting directly on your muscle fibers, including the muscle fibers of the heart and the muscle fibers of the bladder wall. And we know this matters because the people born with a rare defect in that receptor are born with weak muscles in both places. When D is sufficient, those receptors help drive muscle protein synthesis, the constant rebuilding your muscles do. When D is deficient, that rebuilding slows. The muscle fiber, especially the fast-twitch type 2 fiber you need to recover your balance when you stumble in the dark, shrinks. And that is the exact fiber type that age attacks a vitamin D shortage piles onto a loss that is already underway. This is why low vitamin D is so strongly linked in research to falls, to a condition called sarcopenia, which is simply the age-related loss of muscle tissue, and, increasingly, to weakness of the muscle layer of the bladder itself. There are pooled analyses of multiple trials suggesting that correcting low vitamin D in deficient older adults may reduce fall risk, with some reviews citing reductions in the range of 20% or more in the people who actually started out deficient. Findings like these vary between studies, so talk to your doctor about what they mean for you. Vitamin D doesn't just affect bones. It affects the muscle that protects those bones from ever hitting the ground, and the muscle that holds the bladder shut against the pressure of a heart that is shifting fluid overnight. So look at what happened to Robert through this lens. His magnesium was low, so the heart muscle that drives blood back up out of his legs could not relax cleanly between beats, and the pump efficiency dropped a fraction every day. His B12 was low, so the nerve signal to his bladder was arriving late, and his feet were going numb in the dark hallway, and his foot was no longer clearing the slipper on the bedroom rug. His vitamin D was deficient, so the muscle fibers of his calf and his bladder wall were shrinking simultaneously, and his catch reflex was arriving just slightly too late. 3 layers all failing quietly at once. The fall wasn't bad luck. The fall was the predictable end of a chain nobody had checked. Now I want you to see how many different people this happens to, because if you think this is only a Robert problem, you'll assume it isn't you. Take a woman I will call Eleanor. Eleanor was 72. She lived in Arizona with her husband and her rescue dog. Eleanor is the opposite of Robert in one important way. She is meticulous about her health. She takes a calcium supplement, a multivitamin, fish oil, and a high-dose vitamin D her neighbor recommended, 5,000 units every morning. And yet her nights were getting worse, not better. She was up 3 times. Why? Eleanor lives in the desert and avoids the sun completely, so her body makes almost no D on its own, which is fine because she supplements. But she takes no magnesium at all, and she takes her calcium and her D together in large doses without enough magnesium to activate that D. Much of it sat unused. Worse, the more D she pushed in, the more her body demanded magnesium to process it, deepening a shortage she didn't know she had, which is why her heart palpitations got worse, not better, the more D she added. Eleanor is the person who is doing more and getting less, and I see her constantly. She had spent 2 years and a small fortune on supplements that were quietly working against her. Then there is a man I will call Sam. Sam was 66 in Florida, a retired letter carrier, lean and active. Sam's problem was hidden in his medicine cabinet. Sam had been on a common acid-reducing medication, the kind millions of seniors take for heartburn, for 9 years. Those medications, the proton pump inhibitors, the ones whose names tend to end in prazole, work by shutting down stomach acid, and that is precisely the problem. Because you need stomach acid to pry B12 off the protein it rides in on in food, and you need it to absorb magnesium efficiently. Long-term use of these medications has been the subject of a federal safety communication, noting that they can interfere with the absorption of several key nutrients including magnesium and B12. Sam's body could no longer pull those 2 nutrients out of the food he was eating, the way it used to, because a pill he took every morning for his stomach was quietly starving his heart. His feet went numb first. His doctor checked his B12 only after I suggested Sam ask for it, and it was strikingly low. Sam is the case that proves you can do everything right with food and still have a gap if something is blocking absorption. And then there is Joan, 70 in Minnesota, who barely ate any animal products for the last 20 years. Not strictly vegetarian, but close. Her B12 came almost entirely from a sporadic supplement she forgot half the time. B12 is found almost exclusively in animal foods, and our ability to absorb even what we do eat drops with age, because the stomach lining produces less acid and less of a protein called intrinsic. He took every morning for his stomach was quietly starving his heart. His feet went numb first. His doctor checked his B12 only after I suggested Sam ask for it, and it was strikingly low. Sam is the case that proves you can do everything right with food and still have a gap if something is blocking absorption. And then there is Joan, 70 in Minnesota, who barely ate any animal products for the last 20 years, not strictly vegetarian but close. Her B12 came almost entirely from a sporadic supplement she forgot half the time. B12 is found almost exclusively in animal foods, and our ability to absorb even what we do eat drops with age, because the stomach lining produces less acid and less of a protein called intrinsic factor, both of which you need to capture B12 from a meal. Some estimates suggest clinically low or borderline B12 may affect as many as 1 in 5 older adults. Joan had the slow creeping nerve version, tingling feet, poor balance in the dark, a sense that her legs weren't quite under her, and a bladder that had started signaling late, just like the rest of her nerves. She had started reaching for the wall in the hallway at night without realizing she was doing it. Joan shows you that diet pattern, plus age, plus time, is its own quiet gap. No medication required. 4 different people. A strong, active man. A meticulous supplementer. A man on a common stomach drug. A long-time light eater of meat. Different lives, same 3 nutrients, same flooding nights, same weakening legs. One of them somewhere is built like you. So here is exactly what to do, in this order, starting tonight. Before you change anything based on this video, talk to your physician about your own situation. Everything here is general education at the category level, not medical advice or a recommendation of any specific brand or dose. And a quick disclosure, if you find any product or supplement links in the description below, those may be affiliate links, meaning we could earn a commission at no extra cost to you. First, do the bed test, because it tells you which layer is failing. Before you go to sleep tonight, sit on the edge of your bed and watch your ankles. Press a thumb gently into the skin of your shin, right on the bone. If the dent you make takes more than a second or 2 to refill, fluid is pooling in your legs during the day. That is a sign the pump is not quite moving everything back up. That is the heart and magnesium layer. Then, in the morning, before you get out of bed, gently press the back of 1 foot and the front of 1 shin with 2 fingers. If those areas feel numb or feel like they belong to someone else, that is the B12 layer. Write down which test gave you trouble, because what you feel tonight is the baseline you will measure everything else against. You are going to bring that to your doctor. Second, get the right labs, because guessing is how Robert lost 2 years. Ask your physician specifically for a vitamin D level, the 25-hydroxy-D test, a serum B12, and ideally an RBC magnesium, which reads magnesium inside the red blood cell rather than the standard serum test that can look perfectly normal while your tissues, including your heart muscle, are actually running low. That RBC magnesium is the one number most seniors have never had run, and it is the one I most often have to ask for by name. If your B12 comes back in the low normal gray zone, you can also ask about a methylmalonic acid test, the early warning marker I mentioned, which catches a functional shortage the standard number misses. Write those 3 down on paper before your visit, so you don't forget under the clock of a short appointment. Third, go food first, because food is safer than guessing with pills, and it fixes the absorption side too. For B12, the richest sources are beef liver, which is extraordinarily dense in it, fish like salmon and sardines, eggs, and dairy. A 3-ounce serving of salmon or a couple of eggs gets you a meaningful share of a day's needs, and a few servings a week makes a real difference for most people. For magnesium, reach for pumpkin seeds, which are one of the densest sources there is, almonds, spinach, black beans, and a little dark chocolate. An ounce of pumpkin seeds delivers roughly a third of an adult's daily magnesium, and a serving of leafy greens on top of that moves the needle. For vitamin D, fatty fish like salmon and sardines, egg yolks, and short, sensible sun exposure where you live and where your skin tolerates it, remembering that the ability of older skin to make D from sunlight drops to a fraction of what it was at 20. Food first means you fill the easy gaps before you ever touch a bottle. Fourth, pair your movement with your evening, because no nutrient fixes the heart's pump efficiency if the legs do not ask it to. Many seniors spend the day sitting, and the legs become a passive reservoir by sunset. Researchers studying older adults have found that simple evening routines, a 10-minute walk after dinner, a few minutes of calf raises while brushing your teeth, slow ankle circles while watching television, measurably reduce the fluid that pools in the legs during the day and measurably reduce the bathroom trips that follow. Aim, with your doctor's okay, for some gentle lower leg activity most days. Calf raises, walking, slow squats holding a chair. Resistance is the part that actually tells the muscle to keep itself, because muscle is metabolically expensive, and the body will not maintain what you do not use. Fifth, review your medicine cabinet with your pharmacist or doctor, because Sam's whole problem lived in a pill bottle. Metformin is worth singling out because it interferes with the way the gut absorbs B12, and studies have found that a meaningful fraction of long-term users develop low levels, which is why some guidelines now suggest periodic B12 monitoring for anyone who has been on it for years. Do not stop any prescription on your own. Just ask the question, because the answer may explain everything, and the fix may be as simple as adding a monitoring plan or a modest supplement under supervision. Now, the one gap that even careful health-conscious seniors get completely backwards. It is magnesium, and the mistake is taking magnesium in the wrong form, at the wrong time, in the wrong amount. Here is the move almost no one knows, and even some clinicians overlook it. Magnesium comes in many forms, and not all of them reach the heart muscle. The cheap, common magnesium oxide, the kind in most bargain bottles, is the worst absorbed. Most of it passes straight through. People who take it occasionally, on an empty stomach, before bed, walk away thinking they have done something good, and they have done almost nothing. The forms that actually reach the heart and the muscle and the nerve are magnesium glycinate, magnesium malate, and magnesium taurate. The form to avoid, especially if you are taking it for the heart, is magnesium citrate, taken late at night, because it works as a laxative, and most of it leaves the body before it gets where you wanted it to go. There is real evidence that more is not better here. A clinical trial published in a major cardiology journal gave older adults very high doses of a single magnesium salt and found that the highest dose group had more loose stools, more skipped doses, and no measurable improvement in cardiac rhythm markers compared with the moderate doses. So the dose that helps one person can be wrong for another. Ask your doctor about testing your level first, in the form your body can use, in the time of day it has the best chance to land. This is exactly the kind of thing to confirm with your physician before you change anything, because the form that helps one person can be wrong for another. If you take only one thing from the last 20 minutes, take this. Waking up to pee at night after 60 is not simply the price of getting older. In a large share of cases, the first crack is a quiet gap in magnesium, in vitamin D, or in B12, and every one of those is checkable with a simple lab and fixable with food, with movement, and with the right conversation with your doctor. The bed test takes 60 seconds. The lab costs almost nothing. And catching this early is the difference between Robert at 65 sleeping 7 hours straight and Robert at 67 getting out of bed at 2 a.m., catching his slipper, and fracturing a bone that did not have to break. If this helped you understand your own nights a little better, do me one favor. Hit the like button, because it tells the algorithm to show this to one more person over 60 who needs to hear it before their fall, not after. And subscribe because the next video I am releasing covers the 3 walking speed tests that predict a fall up to a year before it happens, and there is one of them you can do in your own hallway tonight. I'll see you in the next video.